It's 10 a.m. right here in Lagos, Nigeria. Good morning, good evening, wherever in the world you're watching from. It's Business Morning live on Channels Television. I'm Ladi Williams. It's great to have you join us. Let's kick off your morning now with market numbers. Now we'll see oil prices gained today about $1 as investors' sentiment rose and news that China is considering a cut in the duration of quarantine for inbound visitors. Now we see Brent crude futures for December settlement rose 80 cents. About 0.9% to $93.21 a barrel in early trade, while the U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude for November delivery, which expires today, rose $1.29, about 1.5% to $86.84 per barrel. The WTI contract for December delivery was last up about 1.4% to $85.68 a barrel. And in all the markets now, we see U.S. wheat and corn futures fell as weak demand on the export market weighed on prices. Chicago Board of Trade November soybean futures settled up about a quarter of a cent there, $13.72 or half a bushel. The CBOT December corn, that's a CZ2, was down about 2 cents at $6.78 for a quarter of a bushel. And CBO2 December soft red winter wheat was up about 8.25% there, and at $8.41 for a quarter of a bushel. In other soft commodity markets now, Arabica coffee prices hit a fresh one-year low, with dealers focused on favorable weather and top producer Brazil, and growing ever more concerned about global recession risk. There we see coffee, December Arabica coffee settled down $2.08, about 1.4% at $1.92 after touching a one-year low of $1.90. We'll drill down on what's driving sentiment in those markets in a moment. But back here, President Muhammadu Buhari has signed into law the Nigeria Startup Bill. The Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Alisa Pantami, announced this after a brief ceremony held in the president's office. He disclosed that the startup law passed on July 20th, 2022 is a legislation initiated by the executive arm and seeks to create an enabling environment for tech-based startups in Nigeria. Based on the provisions of the law, the federal government plans to set up a 10 billion naira fund for startups in the country. Our State House correspondent, Gloria Mizake, reports.
Affirming his promise to boost ICT in the country, the president meets with the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy in a brief ceremony in his office, where he signs the Nigeria Startup Bill into law. Explaining the huge benefits that would accrue from the 2022 Startup Act, including tax holiday incentives, Mr. Pantami revealed a 10 billion naira fund among several other incentives to advance digital economy.
Mr. President has assented to the bill and also conveyed to the relevant institutions of government for gazetting. And the approach we adopted was to allow our young startups, our young innovators all over the country to identify the challenges they were being confronted with when it comes to intellectual property, financing, regulation, incentive, among many others. The minimum at the start, based on the provision of the law, is 10 billion naira.
It says as a pioneer approach to dealing with inherent hiccups in the innovative sphere, a Digital Innovation and Entrepreneurship Council, to be chaired by the president, would be set up.
There is going to be a presidential council, which has been entitled as National Digital Innovation and Entrepreneurship Council. Digital innovation and digital entrepreneurship are the two prerequisites to digital economy. So there is going to be a council, and this council is going to be chaired by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And the vice chair is going to be the Vice President of Nigeria.
He further explains that the act will minimize the controversial issue of harassment of youths carrying laptops by law enforcement agencies.
In some states, because if you are going around with a computer, you will be detained. And some people will allege you are a Yahoo boy. This is a problem. With this council, when President directs, nobody will say no, they must comply. I hope you understand. So the challenge, issue of funding is not even the major issue they complain about. The major issue, let that enabling environment be provided. Let them be honored and be recognized instead of being harassed because of their ideas.
The ICT sector and digital services has so far contributed in the second quarter of 2022 a GDP of 18.44%. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
And to drill down on the commodity market now, we have joined us right here in the studio, Dumebi Oluwole, analyst, financial derivatives company, join us for the second time this week. Dumebi, great to have you. Not much has changed since the last time we spoke. It's still the volatility. We're seeing that oil market. We see Joe Biden here trying to get those prices down, but other parties don't seem to care about bringing down the prices.
I mean, it's beneficial to oil exporting countries because they are generating a lot more revenue when oil prices are higher, although Nigeria has an asterisk to its name when it comes to that. But generally, what's happening in the global oil market right now is that OPEC's oil production cut of 2 million barrels per day, it's propping up market sentiments towards keeping prices high. And, over time, since oil prices began to increase, the U.S. Government has tried to, speak to OPEC on, increasing its supply rather than cut it some more to allow prices soften. But right now, with OPEC making this decision, the U.S. has said that they're going to release an additional 50 million barrels from their strategic petroleum reserves to taper oil prices, to soften oil prices and make it cheaper, because as much as the U.S. produces oil, it also imports. And, the more you import oil, in fact, you're exposed to oil price volatilities. And we're already seeing that happen in the U.S. The U.S. oil inventories, it declined. And despite that, we're still seeing oil prices, increase. So what is happening is that with the fact that they've drawn down, so much oil from the strategic reserves, with the fact that they've drawn down from the inventories, and they're also going to release more oil, to also release more oil from their strategic reserves, we're going to definitely see that have an impact in, the oil market.
That's the arm of the U.S.
Exactly. But right now, from what we're seeing, it's like market sentiments are still, positioned towards, oil prices being high. So it's almost as though OPEC's oil production cut, the fact that demand from China is still increasing despite the fact that they still have their zero COVID policy lockdown, and other countries are still trying to benefit from the oil price increases. It's right now the net effect is that oil prices are still going to be higher despite the U.S. increasing or releasing oil from their strategic reserves. And but a significant thing that's happening with the U.S. Inventory is the fact that it declined. There's a particular it's called the distillate fuel. So, and that is diesel, and that has the distillate stock has really reduced so far this year. And what that means is that diesel prices could increase some more in the United States, and that's going to definitely fuel inflation in the coming months for the United States. And we already know what's happening in the global economy. The fact that there's talks of recession, the fact that inflation is high. The UK as well just released its inflation numbers, and inflation is at its highest level since the 1980s, 40-year high of 10.1%. And Nigeria's inflation is also reflecting all of that. So clearly, there's the trickle-down effect from higher energy prices globally to Nigeria, and it's not only based upon the fact that Nigeria is on the receiving end of these dynamics, but the fact that other global economies are also feeling the brunt of higher energy prices and higher oil prices.
And who do you think is going to win this battle? No, we know the U.S. Joe Biden, he's been pushing for lower prices in the market, but it seems hard, for Joe to actually win this battle.
I mean, I, for one, I don't see anybody winning this battle anytime soon, because the markets are definitely saying that the warning signs are everywhere for the fact that oil prices could remain high. And even if oil prices, even if oil prices soften, it might not soften towards $60 per barrel or $50 per barrel, where all importing countries would, find some cushion for what is happening in terms of, the expenses or how imports have become expensive. And a particular thing that Biden said was that as they're going to release this 15 million barrels from the strategic petroleum reserves, that they're going to keep doing this except oil prices fall towards $62 per barrel to I think $75 per barrel, which the markets are saying that is unlikely to happen anytime soon.
And I wonder what a fair price for a barrel actually is.
Exactly. So right now, there's really no win-win. What you have are the people on the receiving end and people like on the giving end. And on the receiving end are those that are importing oil so much, and on the giving end are those that are exporting oil. Those exporting oil are benefiting from higher oil prices. Those importing oil are definitely, having their backs pushed against the wall because oil prices are, increasing on a daily basis. And even if prices are not increasing, it's more even if prices are not increasing, even if it remains around $80 per barrel or $90 per barrel, we're still going to definitely see that impact on the economy. That's this heavy impact on the global economy and domestic economies. It will remain strong. The heavy impact of inflation, the heavy impact on the financial position of several countries, and we're going to still see this impact in terms of debt. So the impact of what is happening from the Russian-Ukraine war and the higher oil prices, it's not going to wane anytime soon. We're still going to be looking at the impact of all of this, trickle down into 2023 and even 2024, and that's what we're seeing the IMF, from their World Economic Output report, saying that global inflation is still going to remain very high. We're still going to see developing economies experience high inflation even up to 2023. Advanced economies are not left out from these dynamics. Normally you would see that advanced economies are probably going to, probably dance their way through, but this time around everybody is feeling the heat of everything. And for developing countries like Nigeria, we still had a backlog from the fact that we had not even fully recovered from the COVID-19 lockdown measures, the fact that the government was spending a lot more, trying to alleviate the economy before we now had this double whammy of, the Russian-Ukraine war and, higher oil prices and everything that is coming with it. So for developing economies, it's definitely going to be worse. And if we now bring it home to Nigeria, that our oil production right now is, taking a huge hit from oil theft, it's going to definitely be worse for us.
Yeah, and we're talking about oil theft now. For the September oil production is down about 24.73%. The government, they've waged war on oil theft recently. They've been discovering all those, illegal pipelines. And I'm wondering, at some point, do we see, our production output actually ramp up?
I mean, the only time we're going to see oil production ramp up is when there's a complete stop to oil theft, or at least when you see, maybe if the government does have a scapegoat. Yes, if the government does have a scapegoat where other people doing these things, they see that, oh, this is the repercussion for this thing that we're doing, and the government is not smiling about it, then we would probably see a stop to it. But if we keep saying, oh, something is going to happen, so, oh, we've discovered, we keep discovering, but when is it going to stop?
Discoveries with nobody.
Yes, if we keep discovering the illegal pipelines, and yet, money is still being made from this, it's definitely going to continue to tell on our oil production. For example, Shell did, they had the Focados force majeure, that they had to put a complete stop to oil production from that terminal point, and that's one of Nigeria's. That's one of Nigeria's biggest oil production pipelines. And for the fact that that came to a stop, we saw that it definitely did a big number on Nigeria's oil production numbers. And they've come out saying that they're going to reopen the pipeline. But this is after discovering so many illegal pipelines attached to the Focados terminal. So even though Shell has said this, we're happy that they're going to reopen. But until we see a complete stop to oil theft, Nigeria's oil production numbers are probably going to continue to drop. And unfortunately, Nigeria is more sensitive to oil production changes than oil price changes. And we've seen that happen since the beginning of the year. Despite the fact that oil prices are higher, we're still experiencing high inflation numbers. We're still experiencing huge shock from the external environment because our oil production levels are low. We're not seeing external reserves show up because forex from oil production is down, it's extremely low. And the more, then there's a trickle-down effect from that. The less forex we receive the less the capacity of the CBN to defend the naira, and that now has a trickle-down effect on importers trying to access forex, and that's why we're seeing the naira depreciate so sharply at the parallel market, because supply at the official at the INA window is still very thin to meet the demand for forex.
But let's look at LNG prices now. Well, what's happening in that with those markets?
I mean, it's the same thing with all. LNG prices are still very volatile. But as we're approaching the winter season, we're definitely going to see LNG prices prop up, especially with the fact that demand right now is very high, and there are still sanctions on Russian gas. And the main thing happening here is the fact that EU is definitely on its toes right now, trying to source for alternative supply of LNG to them. Russia used to be their cheapest option, and with the fact that there are sanctions now on Russia, and especially with the fact that these sanctions are going to hit 95%, core, 95%. Crux of the sanctions by December, and that's like the peak of the winter season for EU, and not only the EU, US as well, and the UK. So with the fact that these sanctions are still pretty much going to be in place, we've not seen them take a step back on it, and they haven't yet gotten higher alternative options for energy. Well, we're definitely going to see LNG prices.
We've seen Nigeria try to step up there. Yes,
the EU approached Nigeria to step up its production levels and trying to increase its market share. It was a good thing. It was a welcome development, but Nigeria clearly still hasn't taken up the stance to completely improve production that would even satisfy Nigeria itself, satisfy our domestic needs, and before even thinking of exporting oil to the EU and other countries.
All right, let's look at inflation now. We got that UK hot inflation numbers there. It's double digit.
Yes.
We don't expect anything different at this point. The levels just keep going up.
Yeah.
But how's that impacting the markets now, even back here?
At home. So the UK is one of Nigeria's major trading partners and our main source of capital inflows. And with that happening in the UK, clearly we've seen that the government is definitely going to try to tame inflation, and they're doing that by increasing interest rates. And the fact that standard of living or cost of living, in the UK is increasing. So definitely we're going to see an impact on remittance inflows into Nigeria. If, for example, you have a family member abroad or in the UK that you typically would send forex to home, when inflation wasn't as high as it was now, cost of living was not as difficult as it was or as it is now. Now the fact that that individual will have to, try to sustain his or herself first before now thinking of sending forex home. So we're going to see remittance inflows take a hit, and also capital inflows into Nigeria. The fact that the UK is trying to prop up its own economy would definitely have some impact on Nigeria's capital.
And so much going on the political end, so we're going to drill down more on that later on on the show. Thank you so much, Dumebi Oluwole, analyst, financial directors company. It was great having you on the program.
Thank you so much.
All right, well, we'll take the conversation forward. After the break now, we'll be discussing the expected impact of the Land Use Act proposed review and what it portends for the real estate sector. That's our next conversation. Do stay with us. This is Business Morning. Welcome back now to our next conversation. The federal government of Nigeria disclosed that it had commenced process of review of the Land Use Act, which according to experts will improve the country's economic growth and well-being of its people. Well, let's speak to a stakeholder in the real estate industry in Nigeria. We have Dr. MKO Balogun, Group Chief Executive Officer, Global PFI, join us via Zoom. Great to have you on the program.
Good to have you. I'm happy to be on the program. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. So, first of all, what are the challenges with the Act right now?
Yeah, as for every law, this was promulgated in 2004. The last one, it's already 18 years. The initial was in 1978. The purpose of the Act basically was to enable the use of land as an asset for development, Definitely, time has passed. A lot of issues have come up that needs to be looked at, and I think it's the right time for government to have a look at the act and see what needs to change.
And looking at it right now, we know most of the powers are vested, on the state governors, but
Yes.
are they not doing a good job as it is?
Yeah, every state has the authority based on the act to, govern over land for the good of the people and businesses within their state. They have tried their best, and I'm sure a lot of states have, had laws to support the implementation of the act. And Lagos had promulgated two other laws to support the implementation of the act. So I think just like every law, time has passed. There are a lot of things to relook at. Stakeholders concerned, impact on the economy, of the use of land, and what more can we do with the Land Use Act. And I think it is the right time for a look at it.
All right, once the review actually, happens, what can we expect would be in the new act?
I think basically first is to step back. As I said, why do we have the act in the first place? Is it achieving its objective? Are we maximizing the opportunities that land presents for Nigeria across the states? And what are the issues currently that we're facing in each area of the use of the act, of the implementation of the act? Those are the things that we expect the review to do. There have been a couple of concerns about whether, just like you asked, whether the states are actually, implementing or allowing the act to serve its purpose. My belief and my sense is that the review, after the review has been done, the new act will address most of the concerns that have been raised in the industry and for stakeholders.
All right, who are the stakeholders you think will be involved in this review process? Will it just be the government?
Land is a major component for economic development. So government cannot sit on reviewing, an act on their own. There are a lot of stakeholders involved, from manufacturing to real estate to engineering to everybody who has impact or use of land that it will be part of the agencies of groups that the government will want to talk to. Typically, my sense or my experience is that when a act or a law is being reviewed, governments always get involved with all stakeholders within that space to get their input and see what more can be done to ensure that the law, the new act that was promulgated, we address all the issues that have been identified.
And what are stakeholders like yourself? What are you prescribing to be added to the law?
I think part of the concern has always been the issue of land grabbing, and I know Lagos has done a couple of things around that. It's been a lot to address that. Whether the act to be able to will be used to do that at the national level. It's a conversation that needs to be had at the review stage. But the opportunity for land to be an asset, as it were, for development and economic growth is an area that requires complete review and understanding. In Nigeria, for instance, I know a lot of concerns have been raised about accessibility, affordability, the laws around and the process of land approvals and land permits across the federation areas that whether it is possible to extend it beyond just the state defining what needs to happen, and at the act taking responsibility of some of the things that needs to be put in place for the states to implement. So my sense is those are the things that they have to be looking at. In terms of value is transient. You cannot, at the national level, even at the state level, fix, what value land will be. But accessibility is a critical component for land, and the process of land acquisition are the major components that I'm sure the review of the act will look into.
All right, we'll be watching out for the review and the content. But now we know major economies in the world are, battling inflation right now. Even right here in Nigeria, we've seen the central bank, raise rates. The last one was 150 basis points. And obviously we know this impacts, the housing market. What's it like right now?
I think the issue of inflation is global, as you mentioned. Yes, definitely it will affect every sector, and real estate will not be left out in that impact. Also, you can look from two ends. The development end, where the cost of development will increase, and thereby also increasing the output cost for users and investors in the real estate space. Also users, it becomes a challenge because you're going to have double impact, cost goes up, your availability also reduces. So it becomes a challenge. Everybody in the industry rethinking the model on what to do to, at least in the interim. We don't expect that inflation will continue to skyrocket as it's going. We expect stability, mid next year or thereabout, and we expect that to also provide some impact. And there are some interventions that is already happening on the mortgage space to see how we can increase flow of cash into real estate through mortgage financing from pension funds. And these are also part of the things I believe will help and reduce the impact of inflation on the development. But in terms of pricing, there's hardly anything anybody can do at this stage because the input cost will definitely go up, and with that, your cost of sale, the cost of development will increase. It's probably good for investors. Start thinking about whether this is a time to maintain their investment or divest or hold on to what they've had and see what happens subsequently.
And we're seeing, I noticed yesterday, I was checking prices of properties right now. I remember at some point, not the distant past, I knew like detached houses in, say, Chevron used to cost about 50 to 60 million or 70 million. But now, I saw incredible prices yesterday. I saw one going for about 140 million naira for a detached house. And I'm wondering, affordability is going to be a big issue right now. How's demand actually looking?
So in terms of pricing has been a big issue in the market for some time. I thought back as probably 10, 12 months as the economy is struggling, inputs cost has not changed. Yes, that would lead to increase in cost of housing. In terms of demand, definitely demand has not been same. We're not better. Real estate has always struggled in terms of ability to mop up developments and turn around what has been developed for ease of cash. So the challenge will remain, as I mentioned. We don't expect any changes on both ends, and in terms of cost of properties increasing, as well as the affordability. We hope that as things, some of the initiatives come to play, that will help affordability on the other side, where we look at innovative ways of development that will help cost of development to come down.
And what about the supply side? Are the developers still able to supply properties at the same level they used to?
Yes, development is always tied to two ways: demand as well as available funds. So a lot of developers in our market tend more towards when there's fund. The easiest way to put your fund is in real estate. What means that if the market is not ready, you have to wait out until the market is ready for you to be able to get benefit from investment. But that has not changed the fact that development will continue. And you will see all the major areas of Lagos, especially development is continuing both on the commercial, retail, and the residential spaces. So we've also seen uptakes in the areas with regards to industrial warehouses. So development will continue. Nigeria is a good destination for inflow for real estate development. As I said, the challenge the market has always faced is affordability. And with the inflation, that created more challenge. But with some of the initiatives coming into providing cash backup for mortgage, from pension, to support mortgage acquisition of property, that will also ease affordability.
Right, and I know the energy crunch too is another challenge, especially for facility managers. I know earlier this year we've seen how the cost of diesel has gone up. How are facility managers managing at this point? Is the market stabilizing?
I think what the energy crisis has taught everybody in the market is to look for alternative energy sources. In the past, all of us, we want 24 hours, we don't care how it comes. When the prices goes up, everybody started rethinking. The initial reaction was to, okay, let's reduce number of hours of operation, but subsequently, we need to operate your estate, we need to operate your building, what are the alternative opportunities? So currently, everybody is rethinking alternative power solutions, renewable energy, IPP in terms of embedded power across locations, talking to discos and see whether we can get better supply at reasonable rates rather than run generator. Generator itself is also an issue with sustainability, and so there are lots of conversations around what more to do, what different to do, and how to change the energy mix, especially within development. And those who are developing more are constantly rethinking, what do we need to do to ensure that we don't have, increase in demand and use of normal energy sources because of renewables.
All right, so much to look out for there in that market. Thank you so much, Dr. MK Balogo, GCO, Global PFI. It was great having your perspective on the show.
Thank you, Ladi. Have a nice day.
All right, now we head on to Lekki now as we have the 2-year commemoration of the NSAS event that happened at the Lekki toll gates. They're remembering that sad moment in our reality in this country there. People actually were reported to have lost their lives in this event, and at the end of the day, we see the people coming together now to remember and try to bring some kind of succor to those who have been impacted by what happened at the Lekki toll gate. At the toll plaza, you see the youths actually gathered in clusters there trying to have their remembrance ceremony. Right now we see them looking quite peaceful at this point, and hope that this continues to be a peaceful remembrance right there. But we see there's heavy security presence right there. We see cars are still moving through the toll gate. See our people are there trying to get as many visuals as they can of what's actually happening. But we see there's peaceful movement. Cars are moving with the flow. It's quite normal. You don't see heavy traffic at this time. We see the security personnel there on standby, watching to make sure that everyone is protected. At this time, even as they remember those that were affected. Traffic flow looks quite good this time, though we know this toll gate is known for traffic. You see our camera team there trying to get as much visuals as they can for what's really happening. Everything still looks quite peaceful at this time.
Well, you know what? Let this guy go and drop me.
Security presence even at the other side of the toll gate at this point. We're going to bring updates as events unfold at the Lekki toll gate, but as far as we see right now, everything is still peaceful, and we see the youths there still moving peacefully, but there is heavy security presence at this point. We'll get updates. We'll bring you updates as we get them. All right, now let's carry on with the show now. As we get updates about the commemoration, we'll bring them to you. But let's head on to the markets now, where we have Ini to bring us the details. So, Ini, it's another over 2% drop.
Yes.
44,000 level. Lost that 45K that we're hanging on to. That's gone now.
All hope is not lost. But you know, Ladi, just before we get to the market, I saw the pictures there.
Oh, yes.
Yes, and the second commemoration, the second year remembrance of a part in Nigeria's story that still has a whole lot of unanswered questions. You know, because there are stories of people were killed, people were not killed, there were bodies, there were no bodies, and things like that. But I think at the heart of it is still the reform of the police, which seems not to have
brutality,
been... Exactly. We still have stories around all of that still going on in Nigeria. So I guess as we remember the events and the unanswered questions, the big questions and the small ones, it will also bring to the fore the issue of reform of the police and all the surrounding effect, you know, that it has. You know,
and
but
we know the international community also have a big interest in this, and I'm sure they will actually be watching.
Yes,
you know,
of course. And you know, we had some white papers come out of that sittings. We had the different states.
Exactly.
You remember the sitting that they had, and then we had white papers. I remember the one of Lagos when it came, the contents leaked or did not leak. Exactly. That was also another thing. But I mean, we're still waiting to see the implementation of the reforms promised, the promises made, the reform of the police, and the impacts that it should have on the youth. And then, of course, the Nigerian economy generally.
Right, and we'll still be getting updates as how the commemoration is
we sure have.
going.
We have our crew there.
Our crew is there.
Yes, and I think we'll be having visuals.
Exactly.
I hope, as you said, it remains peaceful, as we have seen there. We saw traffic still moving on and all that. We do hope that it remains that way to the end of the day. Thank you. All right, so let's head to the markets now. We see the equities continuing in that bullish trend, and it's really, really bloody, because we have gone from, I think, we're at 50, don't forget, 50 plus. Now we're at 49, and yesterday was the third day we're losing more than 2% in the equities market. All thanks to Airtel. And yesterday, as Ladi predicted in the morning, MTN joined Airtel, and so it was a double whammy, as they say, for the market. And then we are, of course, at 24.138 trillion naira. We look at the activity, we see the deals and the volume in red, and then the value is there in green. Market breadth yesterday was negative, expectedly. Airtel, MRS, Fidelity and Jai's gained, but I mean, when we have all those big Airtel stocks, some very high market cap stocks there, then you know we expect. Let's see the sectors there. Banking still retains the bullish color, at least. Yesterday it was almost 1% up. Now it's, it ended yesterday, it was 0.5% there. Consumer goods in the red. Industrial goods looking very good. I think that's thanks to, who drove that market? but I think Bois Cement also drove it. And then we have insurance also in the green, oil and gas in the red. And the top gainers, Fidelity Bank leading that green that we see in the banking sector, Jais and Mutual Benefit. But Mutual Benefit, I think Mutual Benefit has some things going on for it in the last couple of days. So see the top losers now. If we see the top losers there, Airtel, Airtel again. This is the third time in 2 weeks. Last week once, this week twice now. And we still have today and tomorrow. Hope it will not appear again. MRS also joined that. So let's go to the fixed income markets and see that we had more activities yesterday. 18 deals at the close of trade worth 7.86 billion. If we look at the treasury bills there and see how that did, 10 of that at past 7 billion naira. And well, we have Caleb Alimi. There was an auction on Monday. Let's hear the result of that and what else to expect. Hi, Caleb. Good morning.
Thank you for having me.
Good to have you, Caleb. So tell us about the auction on Monday and the swirling effect after that.
Oh, interesting. So the DMO held its monthly auction for bonds on Monday. It offered a total of 225 billion across 3 maturities. What was interesting to note is that it sold barely 119 billion. It happens to be like the poorest subscription sort of level at the auction in this year so far. And that's largely because of the system liquidity squeeze that we've been experiencing since the MPC implemented the minimum 32.5% CRR requirement that I mentioned, and that has put a tight squeeze on market. In addition to that, we also saw the stop rates at this bond auction increase by an average of 120 basis points. And so we continue to see that pressure, into the secondary market as well, where investors just continue to demand higher yields across both short-dated instruments, treasury bills, and also bonds. You could also tell from the, volume of trades you reported that the market is not doing a lot, just a pocket of transactions happening here and there. And, market just expecting further and further rise in rates.
Yeah, and we don't expect any change. I mean, nothing seems to be in the horizon that can spur the markets into more activities at this time.
Not really, because expectations are that, as the government continues to try to, fully fulfill the budget, there's that revenue deficit that they must get through borrowings. So with that expectation, also with rising inflation and all of that, we just expect that yields to continue to rise. And so people are just keeping their gunpowder dry, waiting for those higher yields before they can begin to trade.
Because the minister hinted yesterday that more of the deficits will be funded through the domestic market. At least that should reduce our debt servicing. But of course, that would also mean some life in the fixed income space.
Yeah, more supply to the markets, is also a function of how much market can absorb. But market expecting more supply would also demand higher yields, basically. So yes, the supply is welcome, but rates would have to trend higher to clear all of those obligations.
All right, Caleb Alimi, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us this morning.
Thank you for having me, Ine.
So, Ladi, the federal government is looking more funding from the domestic market. Yeah. So that might just pull you away from.
Yeah, we get those investors that want to demand all of that security right now. But,
yes.
Well, the yields. Well, we keep looking at the yields.
Yeah, and then we look at the liquidity too, because if the central bank is very busy squeezing out liquidity from the system,
and then how do you?
Then what liquidity do you use to that?
Yeah.
But, I mean, we'll watch
quite a lot for the government to do at this point, the central bank, but we'll see what they'll do, at the next
MPC.
meeting. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Now we'll head on to London. Now, see, we have Juliana there standing by. Great to have you, Juliana. So it's all about British politics. It's all about British politics right now and the risk of a government breakdown right there in the UK. I'm sure the markets are rattled at this time.
Good morning, Laddie. There is so much to pack in. I don't know where to start, but I think, obvious thing to say is that, unfortunately, Britain has no functioning government at the moment. Liz Truss, the Prime Minister, after 6 weeks, has lost complete control. I think it's not a matter of if, it's when she is going to be forced out of office. It could be within the next couple of hours. Chaotic is just one word to describe it. It started yesterday, of course. Yesterday, about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, we got that shock resignation from the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, and there was a scathing resignation letter posted, of course, on Twitter, where she ripped into Liz Truss's premiership. In fact, there are rumours suggesting that there was a 45-minute back and forth between the two ladies in Downing Street before the resignation. Officially, on the record, they're saying that she resigned because she broke ministerial code by sending policy documents via her personal email. However, we know that there were issues between her and Liz Truss just days before that. There is an urgent question happening in the House of Commons at the moment. But then there were really violent scenes in the lobby of Westminster yesterday because there was a vote over fracking. It's just out of control. There is no functioning government in Britain at the moment. Over a dozen MPs have, on the record, asked for Liz Truss to resign. I think the most senior MP is Lord Frost, who was, of course, the former Brexit minister. And yes, it's all a bit of a shambles, highly embarrassing for Britain and the British people. It's very likely that we'll be going into a general election before the end of the year. Sir Keir Starmer, the Labour leader, currently speaking at the TUC Congress, sounding very prime ministerial at the moment. So yes, we're watching the clock. It's very fastly updating, but as I said, it's not a matter of if, it's when Liz Truss goes, and that's being reflected in the market because the FTSE's down at the moment. Yeah, obviously the market is unforgivable when things like this happen, but we'll get more updates later on at 1:30 on Business Incorporated. Thank you so much, Juliana. Thank you. All right, now let's head on to other markets now. Well, we see the UK markets in some kind of turmoil there, but let's see what's happening in the crypto space. We know that Bitcoin there losing that support there at 19,500. Now we see it started a slow decline from just above 19,500. Now we see the sentiment in the market right now. It says 23 points. Extreme fear. That's what we're seeing in the crypto space. So it's not just the UK that we're seeing extreme fear in those markets there. We're seeing right here in the crypto space there, Bitcoin not holding that 19.5 level. Let's look at the market cap. They're $920.79 billion. That's down 0.35%. And we see volume traded also down 16.64% this morning compared to what we had in the last night. Bitcoin dominance, 39.87 points. That's down marginally there by 0.01%. Let's look at the price of Bitcoin this morning. There we see $19,120, down 0.50%. We did hold that 19.5 level over the weekend, but we lost that level. So now the bulls are trying to defend the 19,000 level at this point, 19,120, see if that holds. And we know how Fridays normally look in this market. Depends on what news actually comes out. We might see Bitcoin maybe lose this 19K level and might be looking at $18,000. But we see volume trade at $23.12 billion. We see Ethereum's not left out there. Ethereum's $1,290. This also down 0.54% at ATM this morning. Volume traded $8.61 billion, much less than we had same time yesterday. Let's look at the top alts by market cap. There we see BNB. It's a mixed picture we're seeing there. BNB is up 0.13%. We see XRP trying to get that bullish run back on track there at 45 cents. It's up 0.23%. Talking about XRP, that's been in the news with the SEC. We've been getting back-to-back news with the SEC looking at XRP at this point as a security. Well, let's bring in Solomon Amunde now, a digital market analyst, to bring us up to speed. Hello, Solomon.
Good morning, Lodi.
Good morning, Solomon. Looking at the sentiment in the market now, it's looking like 19K is not going to hold.
Yeah, 19K might not hold. It hasn't really held for a very long time. We always see Bitcoin. The last time we dumped to about 17,900. So I think the critical zone is actually 17,900 and 18,300. But once we break 17.9, we are definitely heading down to 15K. So we are just being hopeful that we don't break 17K.
Right, and we see that the Bank of England, they're saying that DeFi is not truly decentralized and will pose major problems. What do you think?
So far, so good. DeFi is barely 3 years old, and we're still testing the waters. We haven't really tapped into the power of DeFi. We are just about, say, 20%. And for the fact that we are still in the experimental stage, we can see that we can experience lots of issues like hacks and some persons playing with the network. And also we can experience that the lack of liquidity for some projects and some big players manipulating the markets with liquidity. So they have a point. Short term, they have a point. But long term, all doubts will be eliminated in the DeFi space because I believe DeFi has come to stay, and DAOs will play a major role in that.
And talking about, the security issues there, and we've seen most of these platforms actually go bust at this time. Looking at Celsius and some others, Luncy, that's had issues. Do you think they are going to be able to address most of these security problems with DeFi?
Yeah, I strongly believe, I 100% believe we'll be able to address most of these problems, almost 99.9% of these problems. We might not be able to with a certain blockchain like Ethereum, but I mean, we have newer blockchains coming out every day, like Aptos just launched, and it only takes a matter of time before we get that perfect blockchain that will be the bedrock of DeFi, and will be where you see all DeFi activities happening and easy liquidity too.
Yeah, quite interesting, and we did see that Aptos launch, but it looks like there's a lot of volatility with the price.
Yeah, exactly. It's a new project, and they raised so much money from VCs, so it's extremely expected. And also, they did lots of airdrops, so you can see people dumping their airdrops. So it's very expected to see this high volatility in the early few months of project launch.
All right, Solomon, thank you so much. Always great having your perspective on the show now. All right, now we're going to head back to Lekki at this point now, where we're having the youths converge at the Lekki toll gate there for a commemorative walk in remembrance of the 2020 NSANS protest today. Well, it's still looking peaceful from what we're seeing right now, and the police look like they are on guard at this point with heavy security, and we see journalists, all the journalists from other platforms, they're also there, but they're giving mostly interviews at this point. But everything still looks quite peaceful, and there's free flow of traffic at this time, even though we know that this time in Lekki there's mostly traffic. And then beyond all of this now is the conversations that are going to come after this about, we know the major issue with this is police brutality and the claims and the need for police reforms. We're going to be watching how those conversations actually play out, and the NSAS panels and the results from most of those panels that we actually covered right here on Channels Television. We're seeing it's still peaceful at this time. There's still heavy security, and there's free flow of traffic right now in Lekki. But it's quite a memorable moment right now in our history right here in Nigeria, and we're watching it. And looking at the visuals now, we can't really see the protesters at this time. Wondering what's actually happening with the protesters actually taking that walk at this time. We don't have visuals in them at this point. We can't see them right now, but we are seeing at least heavy security around the area. And reports from our reporter right there says that the protesters were actually dispersed by the police, and that's why we cannot see them at this time. But we see a couple of youths, clusters of youths right there, still trying to get the walk at this time. But we did get that report that they were dispersed. And that gathering we're seeing right now is just a couple of journalists actually trying to get interviews with some of the youths that are present right there, and other police the security personnel actually there. So that's that cluster we're actually seeing at this time. We see some other people actually walking around the toll gate, but there is still free flow of traffic at this time, and it's still peaceful. But we did get that report that some of the protesters were actually dispersed.
Not too much, actually, but...
Yeah, we're going to get more updates from our reporter right there. But now we're going to come back right here to our business studio. But we will get updates, and as they come, you're going to get it right here on Channels Television. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to join us at 1:30 for Business Incorporated for more updates and developments in the world of business. Thank you for watching. I'm Ladi Williams. Bye for now.